By the time the cameras left, Misty Croslin had already learned the most important lesson of her incarceration. The world moves on. You don't. There's a particular kind of prison that has nothing to do with bars. It's built from unanswered questions, from a name that carries more weight than a body can hold, from being the answer everyone demands but no one believes. This is Case Within, where we don't just revisit crime, we sit with its consequences. If you're ready to go deeper, subscribe and turn on notifications. This one stays with you. On February 9, 2009, a 5-year-old girl named Haleigh Cummings disappeared from a mobile home in Satsuma, Florida. She was wearing a pink shirt. She loved butterflies. And when her father came home from his night shift at 3 in the morning, she was gone. The last person to see her was her father's 17-year-old girlfriend, a girl named Misty Croslin. Haleigh has never been found. Misty was never charged in her disappearance. But 16 years later, she's still serving time. Not for what she did, for what the world believes she knows. This is the story of what happens when punishment becomes permanent, not because of conviction, but because of suspicion. When a life is consumed not by what you've done, but by what others need you to have done. This is the story of a woman who became a symbol. And how symbols don't get mercy. They get used. And then forgotten. Misty Croslin is inmate number 107,353. She is currently serving a 25-year sentence at Lowell Correctional Institution in Ocala, Florida. Her crime: selling prescription pills to a confidential informant. Not kidnapping, not murder, not child endangerment. Drug trafficking. But that's not why you know her name. In February 2009, Misty was 17 years old. She had dropped out of school in 10th grade. She was living with Ronald Cummings, a man 7 years older. They'd been together less than a year. She was babysitting his 2 children, 5-year-old Haleigh and her younger brother, while Ronald worked the night shift. Around 3 in the morning, Ronald came home. The back door was propped open with a cinder block. Haleigh's bed was empty. Misty called 911. Her voice was frantic, confused, young. She said she'd put the children to bed around 8. She said she woke up and Haleigh wasn't there. She said someone must have come in through the back door. The investigation began immediately. Police, cadaver dogs, dive teams, helicopters, and Amber Alert. The entire nation watching. And from the beginning, the investigation focused on Misty. Her story changed, not once, multiple times over the years. What time did she go to bed? Who was at the house? Was the door already open? Was she awake or asleep? The answers shifted. Details appeared and disappeared. The inconsistencies mounted. The suspicion hardened into certainty. And Misty Croslin became the most hated teenager in America. Nancy Grace called her a liar on national television. Detectives interrogated her for hours, sometimes multiple times a day. Her face was everywhere. Always with the same question: what does she know? But here's what's critical to understand. Misty Croslin was never charged in connection with Haleigh's disappearance. No evidence tied her to a crime. No confession was validated. No body was recovered. No charges were filed. But the court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict. Then, in January 2010, undercover officers orchestrated a sting operation. They used a confidential informant, someone Misty thought was a friend. Over several weeks, they arranged drug deals, small amounts of oxycodone and hydrocodone. Misty participated, so did Ronald Cummings. They were all arrested. It was Misty's first offense. She was 18 years old. The sentence, 25 years. Ronald Cummings received 15 years. He was released in 2022 after serving 8. Misty is still inside. Her release date is June 10, 2031. 25 years for selling pills for a first offense at 18. Many believe the drug charges were simply a tool, a mechanism to apply unbearable pressure to force a confession about what really happened to Haleigh Cummings. Lock her up, make it hurt, make her talk. But the truth never came, and the pressure never stopped. If you're beginning to feel the disproportion here, the gap between accusation and punishment, hit like. It helps us keep digging where others stop. Misty Croslin entered prison as a symbol, a stand-in for unresolved grief, a surrogate for justice that couldn't find its real target. And symbols don't get mercy. They get used. And when they stop being useful, they disappear. Lowell Correctional Institution is not a famous prison. It doesn't house serial killers or people whose names you recognize. It's a women's facility in Ocala, Florida. Concrete and chain link, hot sun, no air conditioning, overcrowded, routine. Misty has been there for 15 years. 15 years. 5,475 days. In her own words, written in a message years ago. All I do is work and sleep. It is the best way to pass the time. I stay to myself so I stay out of dumb stuff. Work and sleep. That's survival. Imagine your entire 20s and 30s reduced to those two actions. No spontaneity, no choice, no privacy, no autonomy. You wake to a buzzer at 5:30 a.m. You dress in clothes that aren't yours. You eat what you're given. You work where you're told, for pennies an hour. You return to your cell during count. You wait. You eat dinner, mystery meat, canned vegetables. You sleep when the lights go out. Every day the same. Every day for 15 years. Misty's world is 8 feet by 10 feet. A cellmate she didn't choose. A narrow window showing only razor wire and sky. Fluorescent lights that hum constantly. Metal bunks bolted to the wall. A steel toilet in the corner, no partition. No mirror. No reflection. She wrote, "It's getting so bad in here. Everyday stuff is changing. They don't feed us good. They don't give us the stuff we need. The stuff isn't luxuries. It's tampons, soap, toilet paper. Basic dignity." She also wrote, "I miss my family so much. I lost my mom. I feel so alone." Her mother, Lisa Croslin, died while Misty was incarcerated. Misty was not allowed to attend the funeral. No compassionate release, no final goodbye. Just a phone call from her brother. And then silence. This is what incarceration does when it lasts long enough. It doesn't just take your freedom. It takes your ability to be someone. Misty Croslin was once the most talked about person in the country. Interrogated, filmed, analyzed, dissected, hated. But at least she was seen. Now, she's inmate 107,353. A doc number. A body the system no longer needs to look at. Her face, once plastered across every screen, is now just another face in blue. Unremarkable, invisible, forgotten. We're only beginning to understand what this kind of time does to a mind. Stay with us. Share this if you think others should see it too. The cameras are gone. The headlines faded. And Misty is still there. Invisible. In 2016, Misty Croslin filed a motion to reduce her sentence. She was 24 years old. She'd been in prison for 6 years. In her filing, she argued that she'd been misled by her attorney, that she didn't understand mandatory minimum sentencing laws, that she was manipulated by a confidential informant who posed as a friend. She was 18 when arrested, scared, alone, pressured. She believed she'd serve maybe 5 years. She didn't know that mandatory minimum meant exactly that. Mandatory, no negotiation, no exceptions. The motion was reviewed and denied. The 25-year sentence stood. But Misty didn't give up. She enrolled in the GED program at Lowell. For months she attended classes. She studied math she'd never learned. She read. She practiced writing. She worked toward something tangible. A credential, a symbol of progress. And then, after months of effort, she was removed from the program. The reason? Too much time left on her sentence. Let that sit. She was kicked out of education because she had too much time to serve. The system wasn't interested in rehabilitation. It was interested in warehousing. This is the psychology of long-term incarceration. Hope is introduced, then withdrawn. Not once, repeatedly. You apply for reduction, denied. You try to learn, expelled. You write letters, no response. You wait for parole, there is none. Misty's sentence has no parole. She must serve 85% of 25 years. That's 21 years and 3 months. She's done 15. 6 more to go. And while she's been crossing off days, the world has kept moving. Ronald Cummings was released in October 2022. 2 months later, he was arrested again. Battery, drug possession, resisting an officer. In November 2024, he pleaded no contest. He's free. Misty is not. This is where the story gets harder. If you're still here, leave a comment. What would you do in her position? We read every one. The irony is unbearable. She is serving time not for what she did, but for what she might know. And that question has become her life sentence. Not 25 years. Forever. Because even when she walks out in 2031, the question will follow. The suspicion will remain. And Haleigh will still be missing. February 9, 2025. 16 years since Haleigh disappeared. A local news station ran a short segment. A Facebook post circulated briefly. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an age progression photo showing what Haleigh might look like at 21. And then, within hours, it disappeared beneath newer tragedies. Compare that to 2009. CNN HLN, Nancy Grace. Misty's face everywhere, her voice on loop, her inconsistencies dissected by millions who'd never met her but were certain they knew the truth. The entire nation was watching, demanding, judging. Now, silence. Misty Croslin was once inescapable. Now she's forgotten. This is the cruelest irony of prolonged incarceration for someone whose identity was built on attention. She was famous for being suspected, for being hated, for being the girl who knew something. And now that attention, the only thing that made her visible, is gone. She is no longer infamous. She is simply incarcerated. Another number in a system full of numbers. Another face no one remembers. The case remains open. Detectives have followed more than 4,000 tips over 16 years. They've interviewed Misty dozens of times. But nothing has changed. Haleigh is still missing. Misty is still in prison. And the world has moved on. There's a question that haunts this story. Not just what happened to Haleigh, but what is justice when certainty is impossible? Misty was never charged with harming that little girl. She was charged with selling pills. But the sentence she's serving, the real sentence, is for something much larger. It's for failing to provide closure. For being 17 and in the wrong place. For telling a story that changed. For being someone the public needed to blame when there was no one else. Is that justice? Or is it revenge? Sacrifice. Subscribe if you believe these stories matter, even when the world stops watching. The legal system used Misty as a proxy, a symbol of accountability when accountability couldn't be properly assigned. And now that same system has forgotten her. Not because she's been rehabilitated, but because the story is no longer interesting. And in that erasure, there's a kind of death. Not physical, but existential. The death of being seen, of being considered, of mattering beyond a doc number and a release date. June 10, 2031. That's the date on Misty Croslin's release paperwork. 6 years from now, she will be 40 years old. She entered prison at 18. She will leave at 40. Think about that. Her entire adulthood, from teenager to middle age, spent inside walls. No first apartment, no career, no relationships outside razor wire. No learning to drive or file taxes or navigate adulthood. No voting, no traveling, no sitting in a coffee shop on a Tuesday morning. She learned how to survive incarceration, how to stay small, how to avoid conflict, how to make 25 years bearable. That's it. That's her skill set. The world she re-enters in 2030, one will be unrecognizable. Technology will have advanced beyond her comprehension. The people she knew will have moved on, built lives she wasn't part of. Her mother is gone. Her youth is gone. But her anonymity, that's gone too. Because even though the world has forgotten Misty Croslin, the news story, the internet never forgets. Her mugshot is archived. Her 911 call is available. Her name is linked to a missing child. She will walk into a world that's moved on from her, but will never let her move on from it. And the question will still be waiting. What happened to Haleigh? Does Misty know? Did she ever? Or has the question itself become more powerful than any answer she could give? There's a theory in psychology about long-term incarceration. It's called institutionalization. After enough time, prison becomes the only reality you understand. The rules become your structure. The routine becomes your identity. The walls become your world. And freedom, when it finally comes, isn't relief. It's terror. Because you've forgotten how to make choices. How to navigate a world without bells telling you where to go. How to be a person instead of a number. Misty Croslin will walk out of Lowell Correctional on June 10, 2031. But she'll never leave February 9, 2009. None of us will. Because some disappearances are permanent. Not just for the missing, but for those left behind to answer for them. To carry their weight. To be defined by them. This is not a story about guilt or innocence. It's a story about what happens when punishment has no endpoint. When a sentence is 25 years on paper, but life in practice. When a person becomes a symbol, and symbols don't get second chances. They get used up and discarded. Somewhere in Florida, in a concrete cell, Misty Croslin is crossing off another day on a calendar she's kept since 2010. One of 2,190 days left. And somewhere else, in a case file that gets thinner every year, in a mother's memory that never stops aching, a little girl named Haleigh Cummings is still 5 years old. Still missing. Still waiting. Still loved by people who will never stop searching. And the only certainty is this. When Misty walks free in 2031, Haleigh will still be gone. The question will still be unanswered. The case will still be open. And the punishment for everyone touched by February 9, 2009 will continue. This is Case Within, where we don't just revisit crime, we sit with what it leaves behind. If this story affected you, let us know in the comments. What do you think happened? What does justice look like when there are no answers? How do we measure punishment when certainty is impossible? Subscribe for more stories that refuse to let go. Hit the bell. Share this with someone who needs to understand. Some prisons have no walls. Some sentences never end. And remember, Haleigh Cummings is still missing. If you have information, contact the Putnam County Sheriff's Office at 380-63290-801. Even 16 years later, even when the cameras are gone, even when the world has moved on, the truth still matters.